guy from New Jersey would have that kind of reception in Cairo. And yet, on the internet, people who would have, what? You brought a Jew on your show? Why you are with a Jew? Yes, hate is there. Yes. So, and the thing is like why we do not see each other, people in the Middle East, people in the West, that we do not put ourselves in each other's shoes. And I want to do something very interesting today. I want to give, I like telling stories. And I'm going to tell you a very nice story.
Tell
and
away.
this is the story, surprise, surprise, of the suffering and the plight of the Jewish people. And I want to say that because it is very interesting when you see the trauma and the suffering that the people on the other side went through, you might understand why they're coming through. So this is, see this? This is a map of all of the history of the expulsion of the Jews in Europe. They've been like, I have never seen a minority being kicked around this much, right? And of course, this comes back to the, the whole idea about the original sin, that you have betrayed Jesus Christ. The blood of Jesus is on your hands. And then comes the 11th century. At that time, Jewish people were not allowed to own land. They were just peasants. Even some of the professions they were not even allowed to participate.
That's fucked up.
But they were allowed to do one thing, usury, money lending, because it was prohibited by the Catholic Church to engage into that. So what happens when you work in money? You get richer, right? And those Jews lived in ghettos. Now, ghettos was not just like isolated neighborhoods in cities. Sometimes ghettos were outside the city. This is like how isolated they were. And in those ghettos, they have to pay gold to the mayor or the governor or the prince or the noble. So they would see, you're getting richer. I need more taxes. So they pay tax. What happens when you have a business and they increase your rent? You increase your service, increase the taxes, increase the. So what happened? The Christians started to default. And suddenly, the image of the greedy Jew was created. Shylock, merchant of Venice. If it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. Like never did I see a creature I can't remember that. Never did I saw like a creature that looked like a man so keen and greedy. Confound of a man. English. I messed it up. Anyways, but this was the image, greedy Jew, the greedy Jew. This was created because of their conditions, and it became worse in 1095, when Pope Urban II called for the first crusade to go and save the birth of Jesus from the unbelievers Muslim. And this crusade did not kill a single Muslim. You know how many people they killed? 2,000 Jews.
Oh my God.
All over there. Why? So they went to it's called the Crusades of the Rhineland. So they went to the Jewish community because, hey, we own the money, so let's kill them better than paying them. And then came the plague. And then all of the things like, oh, they're killing babies, who would do that to a baby, And they accused them of poisoning the well. This was the kind of oppression that the Jewish people went through. Fast forward 19th century, there was like the Eastern Jew in Ukraine and Russia, and there was the Western Jews in Europe. Those people in the Eastern Jews had to immigrate because of pogroms, and they were like, kicked out. And at a certain point, the people in the West, especially in England, it's like, there are too many Jews. We need a solution. A solution for what? For the Jewish problem. So it's like we need to get rid of them. And you know what? Palestine was not even in the A list. Palestine was in the B list, because England proposed 6,000 square miles in Uganda for the Jews, 1903.
In Uganda.
And the reason why Palestine was not on the list, that it was objected by a lot of rabbis that said, like, it's a promised land, but only when the Messiah comes. But there were other options: Argentina, South Africa, Uganda, Madagascar.
Wow.
And eventually they said, all right, let's do Palestine. So they went to Palestine in 1914. There was 700,000 people living in Palestine, 3% were Jewish. 1917, Balfour Declaration. Arthur Balfour, he called the Jewish people in England that they are alien and hostile race. And the thing is, the only Jewish member of the parliament, of the English parliament, Lord Montague, he objected, said, like, these are British citizens, we should not kick them out. So they pushed them, but it was not going fast enough. Came the Nazis. And then it was not about the solution anymore. It was the end losing.
The Nazis are here. Goddamn Nazis.
By the way, annoying that I even have to ask, but you are down with fascist dystopias, right? Yes.
Goddamn Nazis, man.
I want to have fun, classic Rick and Morty adventures like in the old days.
Then we'll get along fine, Fascist Morty. For starters, I just need to get to Forbodulon
You
Prime.
will go where I want you to go!
Woo! Fucking fascists are crazy.
Because he needed an answer for the Jewish question, the Judefrage. And then, as you see, the Holocaust happened, the most orchestrated, industrialized, horrible genocide in our modern time. 6 million Jews died. So it accelerated.
By the way, guys, here are the
First of all, they
laws.
left East Europe and they went to West Europe and went to America and they were turned down and they were
Remember.
pushed towards Palestine. So by 1948, right before the declaration of the State of Israel, there were 2 million people living there. Only 30% of them was Jews.
I'ma
So the
keep
whole
bringing
idea
that
of
up
like a land without
periodically.
a people to a people without a land, it was a marketing thing. They were already Palestinians. So suddenly, from our perspective, the Jewish problem is not a Jewish problem, is not a Middle Eastern problem, is not an Arab problem, it is a European problem. It was pushed on us together with the guilt because now we are the anti-Semite. Now we are the Jewish hater. And not just that, they took land. So people look at this like, why are we even, we had a lot of refugees coming in. And during that, there was a lot of, as you know, Zionist militia, the Aragon, the Haganah, all of these people were killing Palestinians. The famous massacre of Deir Yassin. You're talking about the atrocities of October 7th, it's horrible. But in the Arab mind, there is Deir Yassin, where there is an incredible movie called Tantoura, Tantoura, where the Israeli members of those militias, they talk about the atrocities that they did, including opening up the pregnant women bellies and having bets if the boy inside is a boy or a girl. It is one of the most horrific, and they talk about it, some talk about with regret, and some talk about with pleasure. We did that, right? So you have even King David, I think your Prime Minister, Mr. Sunak, was there.
Jesus
If I was British, I would question this. Because as you know, King David was bombed by the Aragon militias. 91 British soldiers died. I don't know, if I was British, how come my Prime Minister would have the nerve?
Damn,
to stay in
Zionists
that
killed
hotel?
British.
You know, the ghost of the 91 British soldiers, that must be haunting for them. You see? So when you see all of that, and you see that suddenly, overnight, 1948, there were 1.5 million Palestinians, half of them, 3/4 of them were overnight pushed into refugees.
Yeah.
And this is why it's called the Nakba, the catastrophe. So now we have all of this building up into the minds. And suddenly this was like a conflict, a hate, a problem that we didn't have to do anything with. This was basically pushed on us by the Europeans. You see? So this is why it is important to say that. And I'm not saying that just like, oh, let's wipe out the state of Israel, let's like push them in the sea. No, but it's important when you talk about the conflict, that you talk about the root causes, right? No, there was like a vibrant Palestinian culture happening over there. And right now they are erasing this culture. Suddenly I'm thinking of like Israeli fetishes. Israeli hummus. Oh, that's not insult. Israeli hummus. Come on. I mean, take the land, but leave the hummus, man. I mean, come on. I mean, that's not fair. You are someone who's always spoken against culture, cancel culture. Right now, a whole culture is cancelled.
Let me ask you this. Jonathan Friedland is a top Jewish journalist for the Guardian newspaper. He wrote a very interesting column last week in which he said, at the root of all this, you could argue you have two sets of people with just cause. And they believe passionately in their just cause. And he was sort of advising people not to take sides unless you really understand the history. Would you agree with that? Would you agree that both sides have legitimate just cause? Not with the methodology that's taken place, and you've given an extremely detailed analysis of the build-up to what happened in 48. To me, it's pretty clear, 700, 800,000 Palestinians were displaced from their homes, and it should never have happened. And that has been absolutely, I think, the root cause for so much resentment. But can you, at the heart of this debate, agree with Jonathan that you could argue there's just cause on both sides?
There is a cause on both sides, but I'm walking on a tightrope here because
Yeah.
I'm not a Palestinian.
Yeah.
But from the Palestinian point of view, there's a lot of people. I mean, there are 2.2 million people living in Gaza. There are 3.5 million people living in the West Bank. There is 350,000 people living in East Jerusalem, and there is like 6 or 7 million people living outside. Those people, the Palestinians that were pushed out, they do not have the right to go back. Right now, if you meet Palestinians, you'll see them wearing a necklace with a key. That key is their house that they were kicked out from in Yafa and Haifa. You know, like my wife's family comes from Ramla, which is 50 miles from Gaza. And according to the law, those people have absolutely no right to go back. Even if you are a Palestinian with an American passport, they give you hell in order to go in. And yet, a Jewish person born anywhere in the world, born in Poland, born in Ukraine, no question asked, he can jump on a plane, land in Israel, and get the Israeli citizen and take a house that most probably belonged to a Palestinian.
Yup.
So it is not just like it is an ongoing injustice that has been happening.
That's fucked up.
I mean,
Where would you criticize if you're being
Remember, guys, let me bring the law up again. That law he just talked about, it's called this one, absentee property law. And the law acquisition law. These laws allowed you to just take a Palestinian's home. Right here. See? And then they restrict you from marrying people and marrying like people in Gaza and shit, which is fucked up. Let's continue though.
fair-minded, where would you criticize from 48 onwards the behavior of the Arab side?
well, put yourself in the Arab side. At 1948, you constituted 70% of the population. Suddenly, the UN is giving you 48% of the land. Right? Not just that. I mean, the Arab regimes, because they did terribly. And see, this is the thing. Like, Arab nationalism at the height of these people feed on each other. You know, because it's very, very important to have a problem. Oh, it's Israel, and for Israel, oh, it's the Palestinian. It's a very good distraction. I mean, sometimes I feel that like the Palestinian cause is very useful for both sides to stay there as attention because it's always a way to reflect. But, and this is a very important question because in the mind of the Western audience, they always thought of the Palestinian resistance or the Palestinian side as like Islamic, as militant. No, as a matter of fact, some of the early suicide bombers were female Christian Palestinians because they,
True.
like the RIA, you know, they were fighting for a land. The whole idea of Islamization of the whole cause came very later. As a matter of fact, you will find this very interesting because when I saw this, I did not believe it. This, you know, the Fatah movement, which is the PLO, the Fatah. This was their slogan. Can you see? You see, there's a crescent, a cross, and a menorah, and they say unitary, democratic, non-sectarian. So basically, in the 1960s,
yeah, they were still a militant group, though.
Smoking tree hugger hippies, and yet that didn't work, right? And the thing is, I always hear that like Arabs were giving so many chances for peace. That is not true. As a matter of fact, all along history, Israel didn't give an inch of land by peace. 1973 war, they gave back Sinai because Egypt like initiated the war. 2006, they went out of south of Lebanon because of the resistance they have. Even the disengagement of Gaza, they didn't do it out of the goodness of their heart because they had too much casualties. And even the Oslo Accords, the peace treaty, the one that Isaac Rabin and got the Nobel Prize for, they did it because of the Intifada. So what is the message that Israel is giving to the Arabs? I will never give you anything with peaceful resolution. You will always have to fight for it.
Do you not think that, for example, I mean, Bill Clinton feels this very strongly, that there was a great deal to be done, and Arafat, just in the end, having indicated the whole time that if we got to this place, there would be a deal, just walked away. That was the closest that everybody came, and but actually, I mean, could Clinton have done any more than he tried to do then?
I am not, again, that's why it's very important to have people who are much more qualified than me to talk about this. But two things I can say about that. Number one, the whole thing about the Oslo Accord, there was a video for Netanyahu who was talking to the settlement offer in 2001, and he was bragging about sabotaging. He was talking to us like, I sabotage it, like there was going to be no peace. Yeah, you've seen that, right?
Yeah.
And in that video, if you remember, when he was saying like you have to hit them hard, 2001, no Hamas at the time. They were talking about the Palestinian Authority. We have to hit them, we have to kill them, we have to make them feel the pain. And then one of them says like Bibi, but wouldn't America kind of just like, so what? The American public is easily manipulated. 80% are with us. It is absurd. And as a new American, where I can have the privilege of being retrospectively angry, I said like, this guy is mocking the government and the people who have been with him all the time. It's like, oh, they can be easily manipulated. They can do it. And even, by the way, even Isaac Rabin, the one who actually did the peace accord, he was known famously, say the way to actually beat those children is to break their bones, called the broken bones policy. They will like get those kids and break their bones on the pavement.
Oh my God.
The whole idea about like Israel wanted peace and Arabs only wanted to fight is a very, very bad representation.
I actually think as it's gone on, the genuine will on both sides for peace has not existed.
No.
I think it's been a deceit to the world.
No, I'm sorry.
And to the relative groups of people on both sides.
The official...
And actually a betrayal of them.
The official stand of the Palestinian Authority, and again, I cannot speak, I mean, it is very difficult to do this. The official stand of the Palestinian Authority is that we are just happy with 22% of the land. Just give us like that. Yes, there are people that dissent, but the thing is, you cannot just say, okay, let's talk about peace. And then you take away my land. Let's talk about peace. And there's a kind of like passive aggressiveness happening. Oh, let's talk about it, but I'm going to build settlements. I'm going to suffocate your cities and your villages.
You see, I think that has been incredibly inflammatory.
Yes.
Worsening the situation. I think putting back the chance of peace. I mean, Netanyahu, I interviewed Netanyahu earlier this year in the middle of the big social protests in his own country. And I couldn't understand what he thought he was doing, except that it seemed to me political expediency, that he had to get power, again. He had put a bunch of right-wing headbangers into his cabinet who have incredibly bad records, speak in an incredibly incendiary way about Palestinians, for example, and that he did this for power. And then he launched, because they were pushing him to do it, a ridiculous assault on the integrity of the Supreme Court, the independence of the Supreme Court. And many Israelis rose up. So Netanyahu has become, to me, a big problem. Right? And the people, all the polling shows that. Israeli people are very unhappy with Netanyahu. I don't think he's ever going to actually want to forge peace. And in fact, I think he was instrumental with Hamas in wanting to keep them in power because he felt that would create the split with the Palestinians, with two political groups, and that would be good for Israel.
And it was leaked in a Likud conference in 2019 that he was bragging about giving Hamas money because this is a way that we can keep Palestinians divided, and yet we'll never have one. So this is a guy who is...
But look, we can agree about Netanyahu.
No, but not just Netanyahu. There's a book...
I would say most of his cabinet.
There's a book called The Fear of Peace. It's by Moshe Zimmerman. And he's an Israeli historian, and he said, like, the average Israeli citizen does not have a vision of peace. Because for 70 years, this is a country that has been, the war has been going on for, they have been expanding because of war, the military is taking over, so the whole idea of peace is not even there. It's not just Netanyahu. Like you have, I remember you have interviewed Naftali Bennett.
Yes.
And I think you tweeted that like that was like a very kind of reasonable take. Yeah?
I don't think I said reasonable. No.
Yeah, but like this Naftali, he went after Queen Rania, and he called up shame on Queen Rania.
No, I didn't say reasonable. I just said this. I did a fire emoji.
Yeah, yeah.
I just said that what he was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to ask you about Queen Rania, and let's ask about since you've raised it, because Queen Rania accused the West of a glaring double standard. She said this is the first time in modern history there's such human suffering, and the world is not even calling for a ceasefire. So the silence is deafening. And to many in our region, it makes the Western world complicit. Now, other people said, well, okay, if you feel that strongly, why aren't you taking in any Palestinians? Why is Egypt not taking in Palestinians? Why does the Arab world want to constantly attack Israel without actually offering any place to go for the Palestinians? And what do you say to that?
That is exactly what Israel wants. And that is exactly what actually starts.
Egypt can't afford to take that many in, and also if you do kick them out, that's ethnic displacement, that's ethnic cleansing. It's still fucked up.
They basically kicked around from their homes, and now another country should take them. You see what will happen? Imagine this. Now, and because Israeli official has been talking openly about this, it's like, why don't they just go in Sinai? Why they go? You know what would happen? Those people are going to be pushed in Sinai. And with any population, 2 million people, they are living in refugee camp. What do you think will happen? Unrest, chaos. And then after a few years, the Western media will come with their cameras like, oh, look at those Arabs. Oh, they're killing each other. Oh, Israel is good that they got rid of them. And then they will go to the West Bank. And suddenly those 3.5 million people push into Jordan. The whole idea, why does Jordan take them? Why does Egypt take them? The same question. Europe has 44 countries. Why don't they take Israel? America has 50 states. Why don't they give them Florida? I mean, they seem to complain about Florida the whole time. Why don't they just like give Israel? The whole idea was like, oh, you're Arabs, you're all the same. No, no, no. Because what will happen then? So Israel will move into Jordan? That's like, oh, Saudi, why don't you take the Jordanian?
So
This is not a solution. This is not a solution.
Bassem, I hear you.
Fucked
I'm not
up.
taking a position
Yeah.
either way. Let me ask you directly.
But I want to say something about what Queen Radia said.
Okay.
The whole idea about like the West.
Yeah.
I think that in 3 weeks, Israel morally corrupted the West like no other. I think the West will have a lot of time to recover because for years, the West has been telling us, oh, look, we're liberal. We're all about human rights. All are equal. Adopt our
Oh,
values. And then
shit.
suddenly, but you don't want to even to cease. We don't want to even tell Israel to stop. And suddenly we woke up and we found McDonald's are giving free meals to the Israeli because like nothing will make you feel better after killing a bunch of Palestinian kids than a happy meal.
So
you
let
know?
me ask
True.
you
They have a toy.
So
rename.
this brings me to Hamas, okay? So what Israel will say, because they say it to me every time they come on the program, whoever from Ehud Barak to Natalie Bennett, whoever it may be, they say, look, we suffered such a catastrophic terror attack on October the 7th that we have decided we are going to get rid of Hamas. There are 40,000 or so Hamas terrorists.
Hamas is in
we need to
Qatar.
get rid of. And I do believe they're terrorists.
Qatar.
Only terrorists can commit the kind of act of terrorism we saw. So can we, on
Tunnels.
that point, can we agree on that? Do you believe Hamas is a terror group?
It is classified by America as I'm not a big fan of Hamas, and they are a militant group. That does like stuff that.
Are they terrorists, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So we agree on this. So you have 40,000 of them living in Gaza amongst the civilian population. If Israel has decided to eliminate a terror group, Hamas, as the world did with ISIS.
They're in Qatar. They have
There are
ambassadors in
powers
Russia.
The way they behaved on October the 7th to ISIS.
You're never gonna eliminate
How do you do
Hamas.
How do you do it if you don't do it the way Israel is currently trying to do it?
Exactly not the way that Israel does it, because if you have one of the most advanced military powers in the world, and it takes you 3 weeks, 9,000 Palestinian civilian death, 21,000 injured. As we are talking right now, Israel just bombed Jabalia, which is a known refugee camp. This is not self-defense. You know, like one of the most questions, like, does Israel have the right to defend itself? This is a no-value question. This is a no-value question.
Well, I would ask a different point. I would say not only do they have a right to defend themselves, which every country would after a terror attack, right? But they actually have a duty and responsibility to their population to try and stop that happening again to them.
They've been doing.
And I do understand, and I agree with that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If it takes you all of that time, all of these civilians, to take out a few hundred guerrilla fighters.
We don't know how many of the people
few
who died.
thousand.
We don't know.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but Bassem,
But-
you don't know, and I don't know.
We don't know, but
right?
like
we don't even know if the casualty numbers are correct because they're all coming from Hamas.
Oh
And we
my
should-
god.
and we should
They're,
believe
they're
Israel.
definitely
No,
correct and
necessarily.
undercounted.
I don't believe either side.
But
actually.
but here's my problem with
But here's my
Israel.
point. I don't think we should assume that we know these statistics
Okay.
are correct. I don't think we should assume we know exactly how many children are being killed. We do know a lot have been killed.
Shut
so
up,
the moral
bro.
argument
Shut
remains
up.
the same. But we don't know how many Hamas terrorists have been killed in the last 3 weeks. We just don't know, do we?
So basically, we're dealing with a very incompetent military force that has
Yes.
been sucking America dry for years, and then they cannot do the job.
But how else do they get rid of Hamas?
Not like that.
How do they do it?
I don't know, but not like that, because they've been trying.
But you've
the
got to
same-
have another-
They have. First of all, I'm not a military expert. Second of
No, I
all,
understand.
They could do
they've
it how
been
they
trying
did in
the same thing
Afghanistan.
for
Oh, not
years.
Afghanistan,
They go
but like
in-
to kill Osama bin Laden.
This is not an eye for an eye anymore. This is an eye, a limb, a life, a house, a
But they don't-
neighborhood,
they
a whole
don't see-
population for an eye.
But
That
they
is-
don't see. I mean, your friend Ben Shapiro, that you particularly despise,
Oh, I love Ben Shapiro. He's very smart.
Oh, yeah, but you've been very critical. I mean, that's fair enough.
Ben
I'm sure
Shapiro,
you'll
oh,
be-
what a lovely
When
guy.
I asked him about proportion, he said I don't care about a proportionate response.
So let's kill
Right.
civilians as
Hamas
until-
did this, so we are going to get rid
Yeah,
of Hamas.
but he,
It's not in his eyes. It wasn't eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It was this group of terrorists did this, and we are now going to rid the world of these terrorists.
and this is very important to look at things in context. When you see how Israelis talk inside their community, there was a very famous post by Uriel Elitzol. He is the speechwriter of Netanyahu. He said, "What is so horrific about understanding that the whole Palestinians people are our enemies? All of them are enemy combatants. We should kill them, kill their mother." Destroy their homes, the homes that they raised those snakes, so no snakes will be raised in this house anymore. And this was reposted by Ali Chaket, which is the minister of, wait for it, justice. It's not about Hamas anymore. It is not about Hamas. They can tell you it's about Hamas, but it's not about. It is basically. They have said it many times, Piers. This is a way to kind of push them into Sinai. This is not about eradicating Hamas. This ship has sailed. I am sorry, but anybody who still believes that this is about Hamas is stupid, because
You
they
see, I don't agree with that.
really.
No, because I think.
But why they're?
I tell you what I don't agree.
There are like 100 people
I think
killed
any
in Gaza
country,
and the
any
West Bank.
country that suffered the kind of terror attack that Israel suffered, with the kind of death toll that occurred that day, 1,500 plus people, grandmothers, kids, young women being raped, kidnapped, beheaded, it's been reported, and so on. Well, you can raise an eyebrow. I mean, they found a young woman's skull, right? Somehow it had been,
what about
somehow it had been
but
severed
what about
from-
the babies that were beheaded?
Well, there was a report, and you and I had this discussion on air. You falsely quoted me, and I wanted to clarify that with
Yeah.
you in person. You thought I'd said that 40 babies had been
So
beheaded.
what did you say?
I never said that.
What did you
I
say?
said it's been reported that 40 babies were killed, some of whom had been beheaded. That's what I said.
Yeah,
there's a-
totally different. Yeah.
It's a very different. Well, it is different.
Yes.
You accept it?
English is a second language, so
they're
things
different
might,
things.
Of course, yes.
Between
sure.
saying 40 babies have been beheaded and 40 babies have been reported to have been killed, including
So
some
where are those
who were
beheaded babies?
Well, apparently journalists are being shown utterly horrific
Okay,
footage.
this comes to a very important question about credibility. Again, I'm not condoning what happened on October 7th, but I'm not a journalist. But as a journalist, wouldn't you take anything that an authority would say with a grain of thought?
Yes.
Especially if this authority have a long history of lying. And I'm just going to give a few examples. 1996, they bombed Kana. It's a refugee camp. They killed 106 people. And despite that they knew it's a refugee camp. They said, oh, maybe it's a one-time off. 2006, they bombed Kana again. 2014, they killed 2 teenagers at a checkpoint. They denied, as usual, but CNN was there. So they said, we have to say it. 2018, they killed a medic, a Palestinian medic, and they fabricated a video showing that it's someone else, that he was a human shield. And then
I
they,
would say,
can
Bassem-
I just finish
Yeah, but I
that?
do want to respond.
And then 2010, they killed Ahmed Oraikat, denied it, then said, it's okay, it's us. 2021, they bombed the media office in Hamas. It's not us, but no, I'm sorry. And then, 11th May 2022, Shireen Abu Akleh, a reporter, your colleague, she's Palestinian, American citizen, she was shot in the head. And they provided forensic evidence.
Shireen
and
Abu
even a doctor
Akleh?
video that it was not them, it was Islamic Jihad. How can I expect to believe this regime, especially if the president of Israel comes down with this ridiculous thing? Have you seen that? No. He said, okay. This was reported by Sky News, and it was the funniest thing I've seen in so much. This was a Colin Powell moment, but like the cheap edition. Mr. Herzog said, like Isaac Herzog, it's like, we have found evidence.
It
on
is a
one
Colin Powell
of
moment.
The
Literally.
Terrorist, a manual to create chemical bombs, and then he showed this, and he showed. And this is. So I just want to say, why would a foot soldier go into enemy with like a manual to chemical bombing? It's like,
Yeah, he's gonna pull out the crafting table.
Bomb. It's crazy.
My dude's gonna pull up the fucking crafting table, go look for all the ingredients, and then craft a fucking chemical weapon. Minecraft style, bro.
And what he like have like local ingredients to make, and then this is like, this is a manual of Al-Qaeda, of course, conveniently written Qaeda. And let me read it to you in Arabic because this is funny. النشرة الدولية المعنية بالتطوير الذاتي
That's basically 12 rules for life, but
Basically
and for Al Qaeda.
This is basically like a catalog for self-improvement for mujahideen. I didn't know that they have life coaches. So this, and you know what Sky News said? It's like, we cannot confirm or any of this, but we will show it anyways.
So let
And
me
they wrote
respond.
elsewhere. So this is like, this is a lying government.
So let me respond. I
Yes.
do think the Israeli government has lied,
All the time.
right? I do think they've lied. I'm not going to dispute that. I do think they've been caught lying. I do think they've said things that turned out not to be true. I also think that 2 weeks ago, a hospital was bombed.
Yes.
And it was
Who do you
immediately...
think did it?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I think. Hamas immediately tell the world it was an Israeli airstrike and that 500 people were killed.
We still don't
The
know.
hospital had been destroyed. And then as the next couple of days go by, the hospital is relatively undamaged. The car park was obliterated. Many fewer people than 500 were killed.
How many people died?
We don't know. Because actually we're reliant on the Palestinian Health Authority, which is Hamas in Gaza, for the figures. So we don't know the number. But a lot fewer people died, it would appear, than the
Like
500.
100?
We don't know.
50?
Either way,
Yo, it doesn't fucking matter if it's the German Nazi Reich medical records. Like, you just take the numbers or what? You know what I mean? Like, unless you have other records that are more accurate, maybe you gotta take the Hamas record. Just take. It doesn't matter if they run the fucking health ministry, the motherfucker.
it's appalling, but it may not have been anywhere near as appalling as was first said by Hamas. But here's the point. Most independent studies of what happened have concluded that it was almost certainly a militant stroke terror group inside Gaza.
That's not true. We don't know
And they
yet.
fired a rocket which
That's not true.
landed
We don't
in
know
the
yet.
hospital car park. In other words, it wasn't
There's still an
Israeli
investigation.
So I have an issue with that. Because for 3 days before the attack, the priest and the patriarch of the hospital...
Because they showed the
told
rocket they
Baptist
shot
hospital
breaking in
said that
midair.
they have received
And then
warning
another
from
rocket
Israel
coming
that
right
them-
behind that one. And then
And
hitting
at the
the...
time of the hit of the hospital, one of the top
There's a
aides
video
of
out there.
Netanyahu,
I think
he
Sky
tweeted about the
News or
hit of
Al
the hospital,
Jazeera
then he
breaks it
deleted
down.
And then basically, like Israel gas-lighted the world.
But,
Oh,
Bassem,
it was not
but
us.
Bassem,
It was not us.
but that's why I said most independent.
No, that's not true. New York Times actually like just published something to prove that it was shot from Israel. And the thing is,
No,
okay,
they didn't, though.
okay, numbers,
They didn't.
numbers.
Bassem, that's not true.
Okay,
The New York Times has not reported that it was Israel.
no, they said the
They haven't.
okay.
That's not true.
Over 10 years, Hamas launched 35,000 rockets into Israel.
And many failed.
They killed 69 people.
Damn, that's nothing.
25% military, only part of them were civilians. So over 10 years of 35,000 rockets, they killed 69 people.
Shitty
But
ass
one strike.
rockets.
You want to tell me that these glorified firecrackers caused that kind of damage?
Yes, it looks
I mean,
like
they can kill like
did,
12 people, yeah.
Yeah. And actually,
But
it
not
wasn't
50.
the damage that was reported by
50
Hamas,
people.
who wanted people to believe it was an Israeli airstrike. So my point would be, I'm happy to concede that Israel government has lied about stuff over the years. But I'm absolutely certain as well that Hamas lie all the time.
Why are we holding a
including,
militant-
I believe,
why
from
are-
all
Yo,
I've read-
why isn't Israel letting in private investigators or like public, you know what I mean, the media and shit? Why isn't Israel letting in the media and investigators and UN representatives and UN investigators and shit? Let in the media, Israel. Fucking assholes. It's your fault.
I believe
You
they
hit the
lied about
hospital until you let the
Why
media
are we
in to
holding
investigate.
the militant terrorist group to the same standards as the best
because
and
they,
only
because they happen
democracy
to be
in the Middle East?
they happen to be the ruling party in Gaza. So they're not just a terror group; they are a political group as well, a
Okay.
political party.
Okay.
Well, they are. So the question again comes to this, and so far you've ducked it. So I want to ask you one more time. We can both agree that the scenes in Gaza right now are horrific, because I do feel that. But I don't know how else Israel can eradicate Hamas.
Like
the way
Osama
that
bin
they're
Laden got
trying to do it.
wrecked. Like
Do you have
that.
an alternative
You
for
treat
it?
the people kindly.
again,
You
we
fucking
are
find the
locked in the
phone number.
same
You ask
framework
town
and we
people to
now
give up the
look
like
at
people
what's
they may
happening
think
over
who are
You,
connected.
the best
You
recruiter
go
of
up the
Hamas
chain
is-
like that, you dumb fuck.
I mean, you have talked a lot about the horrible condition in Gaza.
Yeah.
I mean, let's imagine like a little boy called Rami. He lives in Gaza. You know, he have a horrible life, but like, you know, it's like, it's not that bad. I know he has a cousin in the West Bank. He's living a good life. He wake up in the morning And he found out that he was kidnapped by 3 settlers. He was burned alive by kerosene, and he was forced to drink the kerosene. His name was Muhammad Abu Khudaira. That settlers did that to him in 2016. Said, all right, you know what? I'm just going to leave. I'm going to find a way to go to Europe. His aunt is a published author, and she won a prize in the Frankfurt Book Fair. His name is Adnaya Shalabi. And now she was cancelled because of what's happening, just because of her a Palestinian. His other aunt in America, his name Bahia Amawi, she is a speech therapist. And this is close to my heart because of my son. And she was fired because she did not want to sign the for government contract that said that you cannot join BDS, which I don't understand. Why do people
That's fucked
choosing
up.
to protest peacefully by not buying goods from a certain
BDS, yeah,
country? Why would
boycott,
the United
divestment,
States make that its own
sanctions.
issue? So, and this guy, this Rami is being approached by like, oh, join Hamas, join us, let's go kill Israel. No, I don't want to kill. I'm going to live in Gaza. It's a life, but 97% of water is not good for human consumption. Half of the population are anemic. Even the is not being treated, and it goes into the shores of Israel. It's like, oh, those Palestinians.
which is horrendous.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
So, and then he wakes up in the morning. He doesn't think about killing Jews the first thing in the morning. He thinks about being there at 5 o'clock at the first 50 people in the line for bread, because if he doesn't, he will miss the food for his family. And he goes back, and he finds a message saying that we are going to bomb your house. He comes back, he loses his whole family. Now, tell me, what is a proportionate response for that?
I don't know.
Bro, that guy probably feels like shit. That's literally how I would join Hamas probably if I was in that situation.
You cannot create terrorism.
I mean, I'll try my best not to, but Jesus fucking Christ.
They have created
But
this.
I don't know is the answer. But Bassem, let me ask you this. Hamas will have known when they perpetrated what they did on October the 7th, what the scale of response was likely to be. How does that help the Palestinian people
I don't know.
that they are supposed to serve?
I don't know. The wheels are already set in motion.
But it doesn't, does it?
I do not, this is the thing. I feel sometimes that Hamas is with us in the room, that we are bringing Hamas. Who has the power in this equation? Who has the 4th largest and strongest military power? The whole idea about Israel, it's like, oh my God, the Arabs are going to destroy us. Look at the map.
Well, hang on. Hang on. Hamas's stated goal is the eradication
Their charter, yeah.
of Israel and the Jewish people.
Yes.
They make no pretense about it.
But it's
They've
been
made no
updated
attempt,
since
unlike the Nazis,
they took
to
that off,
cover
right?
up their crimes.
Absolutely.
They've made no attempt to try and deny what they brazenly boasted about it.
Yes.
They are proud of what they did. Right? And they will have known, again, the scale of what they did on October the 7th would have prompted this kind of response, which would have led to thousands of innocent Palestinians getting killed. And my question for you...
I wish the 7th of October never happened.
Right, but
every time something
you say
happened.
Hamas is everywhere. Well, yeah, actually, all roads,
but-
roads on this
but-
particular
okay.
part of the crisis, and I accept it's been going on for 75 years, this conflict, but all roads in this crisis lead to Hamas.
That's not true, man. It's Israel's occupation.
Not necessarily. Because
yes.
all roads goes to the condition that created Hamas. If the Jewish people were expelled from Europe and went to Argentina or South Africa and Uganda and went in and took the land, you would have Hamas in all of these.
For example, guys, look, I'm Cuban. Yo soy cubano, so I'm Cuban, and America put an embargo on Cuba. This is written in the CIA and shit. They talked about it. America put in an embargo on Cuba because Cuba had a revolution. And Cuba overthrew Batista, which was an American ally, American dictator. And, Batista was there to just take the money. He was helping the fucking mafia in casinos and shit. And, you know what I mean? It was like a big-ass dictatorship where he was in foot with the mafia. Anyways. Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, a lot of revolutionaries, they overthrew that government. And ever since then, Cuba's been embargoed by America. And so the people there are starving, they're dying, they're hungry, their water's not, the best. They're suffering. And America put that in place to try to get those people to revolt and overthrow the Cuban current government that's not pro-American. So this is what Israel's doing to the Palestinian people, because Hamas is their leader. Israel's treating all Palestinians like shit, even on the West Bank and stuff. And this is not just because of Hamas. They just hate Palestinians. They're racist, and they want to take that land. But they're using this as an excuse because Hamas is there. They're doing all this embargo and treating the people like shit, not giving them food, starving them, not giving them water, not letting them use power. You know what I mean? Everything. That is fucked up. As a Cuban, I stand with the Palestinian people. Israel needs to fuck off. Give everyone the same rights. Dissolve the fucking borders. And just have it be Palestine and Israelis can live there. Like, everyone can live there all together. Why does that need to be all fucking, like, split up and shit? Fuck the UN partition. If Israel's not even following the UN partition line and shit, and it's just occupying, like, West Bank and stuff, fuck the UN partition. Make it Palestine. Dissolve the Israeli government, because it's fucking fascists. Put in a real democracy for both sides. Under one state. That's the only option, I think. I don't agree that they gotta be separated with huge walls and shit, like segregation. Get the fuck out of here.
You and I can agree that the conditions Palestinian people have had to endure in Gaza for a very long time are completely unacceptable. I think it's completely unacceptable that Israel has wielded such control over the people of Gaza, working out who can come in and who can go out, turning on and
Israel,
off water and power.
The Israeli government literally does calorie counts. They count every calorie for every human being in Gaza. And they allow just that amount of food to go in. Just the calorie count. And that could be a fucking undercount.
Turning off the internet on and off at a whim, all that kind of stuff, I can completely agree with. But given that I think we agree Hamas are a terror group.
Okay, let's say...
Let me finish my question. Given that we agree that Hamas is a terror organization who have a publicly stated position of annihilating not just Israel, but Jewish people, and as we saw on October the 7th, they mean it. If you are Israel, what do you do to get rid of those people who have shown the world that's exactly what they will actually do if they get the chance?
You know what I would do? I would give the Palestinians what they deserve. Terrorism is a virus.
Yes?
It's a virus.
I agree.
If a patient with a flu came to you and you're a doctor, how can you treat that patient? How do you treat? As a doctor, how do you do?
Well, you're the doctor.
You give them nutrition, fluids, and rest. So the immunity of the body gets rid of the virus on its own. If I received that patient with a flu and I took a sledgehammer, it's like, why are you not getting better? Do you think that patient will get better? No. You are weakening him. You are making him worse. Israel did not just like weaken the body of Palestinians, making them unable to get rid of hate and radicalism. They have openly bolstered about helping and giving money to the same terrorist organization. So,
I agree. I think Netanyahu is complicit in keeping Hamas in power because it suited him politically.
yes,
And I think you can't get away from that.
yes.
There's no question of that. But there's also no question that the Israeli government, led currently by him, has to stop Hamas from perpetrating another terror attack. And again, it comes down to this question. What do they do to get rid of Hamas if it's not what they're doing?
I don't know. But like as an Israeli citizen listening to this, how come that my prime minister bragging about giving money to the terrorist group that he is using right now to eradicate a whole group of people and yet using them as an excuse? Isn't that weird? This is like this is like Tony Blair being like found like giving money to Al-Qaeda or ISIS and then going to fight them. How does this work? How does this work?
I agree.
How does this work?
Yeah, but I agree with
so
you.
yeah, it's a terrorist attack. And Israel is funding them? I mean, this is in the words of Benjamin. This is the thing about Benjamin Netanyahu. He brags about that stuff. So this is a circular question.
Yeah, but
yes,
I agree with you.
Hamas is to blame.
Literally.
Who created Hamas? Who's helping them? And who is allowing for an environment for that kind of hate and destruction of Jewish people to
It's the
to
right-wing
aspire?
government
And I
of
think
Israel,
there's
obviously.
something very important to the Western audience here. They think that Israel is a small, tiny country between the hostile Arab countries. The biggest military power in the Arab world is Egypt. They have a peace treaty. Their neighbors, Jordan, they have a peace treaty. Saudi Arabia, Emirates, either like have like full relationship or like on the way of normalization. The only people that, even Syria is not like even like didn't launch like a single bullet. The only two crutches that Israel is like Hezbollah and Hamas. A few militant, thousands of militant. Is that really formed an existential like threat, especially if I know that over 13 years, only 69 Israelis were killed?
I would say.
Would that really wipe out Israel? Is Israel that weak?
I think if you have two groups of people who are ideologically wedded to your destruction as a state and as a populace, and you're constantly firing rockets, as Hamas have done for over a decade now, then that cannot be acceptable. You have to stop that, right? These are terrorists who've now shown on October the 7th their true colors. They don't just talk about wanting to kill all Jewish people. They are going to do it if they get the chance. So I don't believe Hamas can possibly stay in any position of authority in Gaza. I think that would be ruinous for not just the people of Gaza, but also for Israelis. So if you're going to get rid of them, which many people think on both sides is inevitable and should happen as a consequence of what they did, the big question is, how do you do that? And I don't know any other way other than the way Israel is currently doing. Hence my personal moral quandary about this.
So if a terrorist takes over the Empire State, instead of taking him out, we bomb the whole Empire State?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
No!
That is not even a question.
Well,
that
no!
is not even a question because that would be ridiculous.
You talk about the normalization of the region. I mean, the theory that I most buy into, supported by recent, I think, Wall Street Journal reporting, that hundreds of Hamas terrorists had gone to Iran for training before this attack.
Okay.
It had obviously been very carefully organized, and so that is, I think, highly likely. But if you're Iran, and you're looking at all this normalization, and you're looking at Saudi Arabia being next, this is your worst nightmare. So a perfect time to commit an atrocity like this through your proxy of Hamas.
Again, I'm not a political expert to know what is the background, but let me tell you.
It's a likely theory.
Is Hamas justified? Is all of the horrible conditions that Palestinians are living in, is that a justification for Hamas doing what they did in October 7th? Good.
Do you think so?
Of course not.
Right. So we're agreed.
No, of course. So let me ask you the question a different way. There is no justification what Israel is doing now. No Hamas, no terrorist attack justifies this.
Well,
because you have been there.
No, but
you have been there. You have stood against the Iraq war.
Yes.
And that is too much.
Yeah, but here's the
you are
difference.
killing a whole population.
No, here's the difference. I didn't stand against them for that reason. I stood against the Iraq war because I did not believe we had seen evidence that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. So we were fighting a war against a country and a despotic leader which had nothing to do with 9/11, as they were trying to claim. It was actually a lie perpetrated on the world, and the consequences were disastrous. 1 million people died. I mean, over 150 British troops died. My brother served in Iraq and could have been one of them. You know, the whole thing was a fiasco, a deadly fiasco. It led to the rise of ISIS and all the hell that came with that. So, you know, yes, absolutely, I fought that campaign against that war, and I wish I'd been successful. But the singular difference here is no one is disputing, least of all the Hamas themselves, that they perpetrated this attack. And I believe Israel has a fundamental right and a duty to defend its people from them doing it again. So if we can agree on that as a principle of a country that's had that kind of attack and how you deal with it, the question then becomes, how do you eradicate the people who did it? And I just think, given
like how they killed Osama bin Laden,
of the way the population,
you got to do precision. You got to treat the nearby neighbors,
and that is in
the
itself
townsfolk kindly.
unacceptable. And
You got to
I'll agree
like
with you about
ask them
all of that.
questions.
And that has to be fixed longer term. But actually, if Hamas are everywhere there amongst these people, I just don't see any alternative to what they're doing. And I'm very happy to consider one. But I don't think you have one either.
So if the Iraqis were actually, there was evidence that they were behind 9/11, would that still be okay to kill a million Iraqis?
We have a parallel, which is Afghanistan. And in fact, I would say, but that raises a different question. So was the Afghanistan war just? I believe it was, in a way that Iraq wasn't. I believe that Afghanistan was harboring terrorists, Al-Qaeda. We know that they were training there. We know the Taliban were there. And we went in, we launched this war. It goes on and on and on. Huge bloodshed on both sides. And in the end, after a ridiculous overnight pullout by America and President Biden, the Taliban are back in charge. and waging the same kind of medieval rule they waged before all this. So you've got two things. Was it justified to strike back at Afghanistan for harboring al-Qaeda? I would say yes. Did the means in the end justify the war? You could argue no, actually, because actually you ended up with the Taliban back in charge. So they're two different things. And it may well be here, by the way, as I've said, that if Israel pursues this ground invasion,
What the fuck does
it
harboring
backfires
Al-Qaeda mean,
horribly.
bro? Like,
It leads
Afghanistan's
to a much
so
wider
big.
conflict involving many other people, possibly including Iran directly, and it could be a horrendous escalation and a massive war raging through the whole region. And that is my fear about it. But I come back to the central point of justification, and I'm really struggling to see what else Israel is supposed to do to get rid of Hamas. And if you've got an alternative, let's hear it.
I do. Piers, this is never about Hamas. Believe me, it is never about Hamas. If somebody tells you who they are, listen. Israel has been telling the world all the time, they need to clear the Gaza Strip into Egypt.
You think that's always been the plan?
Always there. I mean, they have said it. They have said it many times. Why does Egypt take them? And do you think when Egypt takes them, do you think they'll go back? No, never. And then when they're done with Gaza, they will go back to the West Bank. They will kind of like build the settlements around them, and then until they push them into Jordan, because that is the plan. They have token, not just Benjamin Netanyahu, everybody said like, there's no state, two states. It is one state, and it's for the Jewish
I don't
people.
think he believes in a two-state solution.
Nobody believes in a two-state solution. It is one state.
But nor do Hamas, obviously. And they're the ruling authority in Gaza.
They,
They don't.
you see what you're comparing? It's a militant group. It's a small militant group.
But they are the
Israel
ruling
don't have power,
Israel as a
motherfucker.
nation-
They are
as-
the elected political leadership.
They were
of-
elected in 2006, and 50%
But they are-
of the people in Gaza right now are under the age of 16. They were
I
not even
understand.
born.
I understand.
Yeah, like so,
Understand.
and the
so
thing,
all right. So Bassem, let's agree about that.
but that's the circle city. It's Hamas,
I understand. It's a
Hamas,
circular firing
Hamas,
squad.
Hamas,
I know,
Hamas,
I know.
Hamas, Hamas.
I know, but okay, let's move forward.
Oh, yeah.
Let's assume somehow we get to a place, possibly at the instigation of countries like Saudi Arabia and others getting directly involved, where you get to a place where Hamas are removed, and I don't quite see how that happens without enormous further bloodshed, but let's assume they get removed. Let's assume that Netanyahu is removed from office, which I think is highly likely just from the fury of his own people about what they see as the defensive and security failings, plus his attack on the Supreme Court already causing huge polarization. Let's assume we get new leadership in both places. Could there still be peace? Could there still
No.
be a two-state
No,
solution?
no.
It can never happen.
No, because Israel have already shown it's not about Netanyahu. It is the policy of Israel not to give the Palestinians their seat. It has always been there.
But what if you find leadership that understands?
You will not.
But why are you so...
You will not.
But why do you not think so?
Because Israel has been,
But they would say the same about the other side. And I remember...
who has the power?
Let me give you a parallel. Let me give
Obama
you-
in his book.
Let me give you a
after he-
parallel.
okay.
Let me give you a parallel. Northern Ireland, okay? Northern Ireland appeared to be completely intractable, with the IRA and the loyalist paramilitaries trying to kill each other. In the IRA's case, trying to kill British people as well, because they did not want this to go the way that people wanted it to go. And ultimately, we got to peace because we found leaders who actually had the courage, the moral courage, to get in the room with the people that were trying to kill them and to do a deal. I don't think you can do that with Hamas. They're on a different scale altogether to the IRA. But we did have a seemingly intractable place riddled with violence on both sides. And eventually, we got peace. Do you not see there's any chance of doing that here?
No, not with Israel. Obama, after he left office, he wrote in his book, the problem with the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is that one side is extremely powerful and one side is extremely weak. There is absolutely nothing to oblige that strong side to give anything. All over the years, Israel showed you many times that they are not interested in peace. Leave Gaza. Forget Hamas for a second. The West Bank. What have they been doing in the West Bank? The illegal settlements did not stop a single day.
No,
They
no.
are
And it's completely wrong.
yeah, but the thing
But
is,
it's wrong. I agree with you.
But you see what they're doing in the West Bank right now? They are creating little Gazas. They are creating little Gazas.
Yeah.
And until they are like squeeze them.
It's completely wrong,
There
Bassem.
is a hilarious documentary called The Wanted 18. It is like an Israeli-Palestinian co-production, and it tells about the incredible story about the residents of Beit Sahur. It's a Palestinian town next to the Nazareth. And They said they don't want to depend on the milk coming from the caputs. So they bought 18 cows. 18 cows. And they didn't know how to milk the cows or have a cow farm. So they were like engineers and doctors. So they sent people to kind of like to learn how to do the farm. So they bought the cows and they started to produce milk and they started to sell the milk to the villages. The Israeli authorities were not very comfortable. So one day the military government came in and was like, those cows, and I quote, constitutes an existential threat to the national security of the state of Israel. You need to get rid of them. And the movie goes about like the hilarious attempts of hiding those cows between the butchers and the houses. And in one scene, a cow is actually running and the Israeli soldiers are like running behind it and they corner it and they corner it and they're about to kill it. And you know what did the cow say? You didn't fall for this, cows don't speak. Yeah! But you know, it actually said something. You know what did it say? It said hummus. But anyways. But you see, this is the ideology of the Israeli ruling party. They are not interested. They're not even allowing you to get your own cows. I mean, I want to discuss something that is very important because we have been talking about Israel being a democratic state, a secular state for all of its citizens, including its Arab residents, right? Wrong,
Yes.
wrong, 2018, there was a resolution that was offered in the Knesset that say that Israel should be a state for all of its citizens. That seems basic, right? That resolution was not even allowed to be discussed.
Damn.
It's like, wait, why? And the rebuttal was, Israel being the state of all of its citizens would threaten the character of the Jewish state. There is, I have a friend of mine, his name is Andrew. He's Palestinian Christian. They do exist. And his family
they
comes
do
from a
exist.
town called Tarshiha. As many Palestinian towns, these were like, you know, had another Israeli town called Kafar Vradim. It is a left-leaning town. They voted against Netanyahu by 70%. And they announced an auction to sell houses. And then they noticed that most of the applicants were Palestinians. They canceled the auction. Why? Because in each Jewish town, there is something called admission committee that can decide who can live in this town. Sounds like Jim Crow for me. And then they canceled.
Guys, remember this. Look. Law to amend the cooperative societies ordinance number, blah, 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 regional councils. This is the admissions committee. Here it is. Yeah, which sets up admission committees, screen Jewish communities for social suitability or their unsuitability to their community's social cultural fabric of community. The vague wording, sorry, I messed that up, enables discrimination primarily against Arabs, but also against Mizrahi Jews, Ethiopian Israelis, or anyone whom residence privileged community fear will lower the property value. Fuck them.
Know what they say in the reason? They say Kafar Vradim welcomes all citizens of Israel despite their race, gender, or color. However, the majority of the town would like to preserve the character of the town as being Jewish, Zionist, and secular. How does this go together, secular and Jewish aside? You know, and this brings me to this picture. This is a very famous picture. You know, remember this picture? I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah.
This, for the people who don't know, this from San Augustine, Florida, 18th of June, 1964. This was a white-only motel. And these are black activists who wanted to defy the law and jump into the hotel. This guy is the owner of the hotel. His name is James Brooke. And he was pouring acid to scare them out of the hotel. His neighbor said that James Brooke was a victim because he was just following the law. And you know what James Brooke said?
Acid.
He said, it's not like I don't like black people. I just don't like them in my swimming pools. Now, if an official said that, wouldn't you say that this town has kind of a systemic racism?
Yes.
This quote was not said about James Brooke. It was said by Deton, the head of the Galilee municipality, when he said, I don't like Arabs. I don't just like them in my swimming pools. The town of Nazareth Elite, 2010, the Arab Christians in the town, they requested to set up the Christmas tree next to Nazareth. This is the birthplace of Jesus. And you know what they said? We cannot have it because non-religious, non-Jewish symbols would offend Jewish residents.
But this comes back to what you were saying at the start, which is about
Wow.
the hate on both sides.
No, I'm not talking about the hate. I'm talking
I'm-
about this shining example that Israel won't tell the world that we are like the Western world. We are secular. I don't know if you know this, but they're not just like secular, like Christians against their own Arab. I'm talking about like Arabs with Palestinian, with Israeli identity. I'm talking about them being even racist against their own people. 1950, Yemenis immigrants that came from Yemen and they were in the transition camp waiting to be transferred into Israel. Their kids were taken away from them and given to white Ashkenazi Jews because they were not white enough.
But Bassem, what would happen if a Jewish person went to Gaza?
Why would they go to Gaza?
And exactly.
Even I wouldn't go to Gaza.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah,
So-
it's a dystopia. Who would? But like, but I'm just.
So it's
wanna-
not just, you're
but-
raising points about Israel, making out that somehow they're as bad or worse.
No.
Because there are laws in place in Israel that allow you to
In
discriminate.
the most oppressive way imaginable, too.
actually-
Gaza doesn't have a fucking functioning
never
government, you
claimed that they
dumb
are the
fuck.
only democracy in the region. They never claimed that they are secular. They never said that they adopt Western tradition. And
I
they
wanna-
definitely,
Okay.
they did not use that lie in order to carpet bomb a whole country.
Okay.
Now here, I
Let me-
want
I
to say
wanna read
one
you a
example,
quote.
and I'm going to leave you.
All right.
Israel, you think that Israel will like, by the way, the whole thing about the Yemeni children, you can find it in New York Times, it's called like the lost children of Israel, the forgotten. But even when Ethiopian people were immigrated to Israel, Ethiopian Jews, women then report, 2013, that's not like 50 years ago, they reported that they were given against their consent and without their knowledge contraceptive shots so they wouldn't reproduce because they are the wrong color. Israel is a racist,
Fascist.
apartheid country that is projecting this shiny example of secularism and democracy for the people so people can accept whatever they do because they look at Palestinians as lesser people. This is the whole point. This is the whole point. And I would like to quote Winston Churchill. He had a quote that say, I don't believe that we have made a great wrong to the Red Indians of America or the black people of Australia because they were replaced by a higher race, a stronger race, a more world-wisely race. This is why Queen Rania is criticizing the West. This is why we here said, like, where are your values? Because this is the crux of the problem. It's not Hamas. It's not Palestine.
I wanna quote-
it is people
I wanna
looking at
quote
us
you.
as lesser human beings.
Bassem, I don't dispute the characterization that a lot of the Israel administration look upon Palestinians as lesser people. Otherwise, they wouldn't.
They even look at the
they wouldn't treat them
Ethiopian
in
Jews and Yemeni Jews like less.
I wouldn't dispute that. I want to quote you to end this.
No, why would you end this? Don't end this.
We'll be talking for 2 hours.
Why not?
At some point,
We're
we have to
having
end
an
this.
amazing
We
time.
can do another interview. Well, this one goes big. I think this is a neat way to end it. He said, I actually believe there is a middle ground between everybody and they can meet. I direct my criticism for the extreme of each one of them. That was you, Bassem Youssef. I agree with that. But I don't share your view there can never be peace in this region. I think there can't be with the current leadership structures in both countries, or both places. But I definitely think you've got to be optimistic about peace. You just need to find people
I
that
hope
can
so.
forge it.
I hope so. But the reason, listen, I refused to come on your show when your producer first called me for the first interview because I was scared. I was afraid. For me, that was a career suicide. Because I'm talking. This is even important because you are someone who's always talked about like against cancel culture, about like speaking your mind out, speaking your mind out.
Yes.
I left Egypt and I came to America, the land of the free, the home of the brave. But I didn't know that there was a fine print said that you cannot speak about Israel.
Yep.
I have issue with that. Israel is a foreign country. They're allies. Good.
But you
we
can
give them
speak about Israel.
How many people lost their jobs? Even Bella Hadid. Bella Hadid. Bella Hadid. Billah, by the way, Billah.
She hasn't lost her job.
No, no, but she talked about death threats. She's talking about like being silenced.
Sure.
And by the way, Bella Hadid is with, she's Palestinian. And you know who else? Gigi Hadid sisters.
I love the Hadith.
They are with us.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
so
know them both. They're very nice.
yeah, but the thing is, if you are that high and you cannot speak about it, and it's not about it's
Well, you
like
can. You just have to. Have,
but yeah.
you can. I mean, I've spoken out about these issues, and you get shot at, not literally, but metaphorically, all day long on social media. But that shouldn't stop people from doing it.
I'm just like wondering, as an
You
American,
do?
as an American, yeah, but like, I'm doing now because like the first interview went well.
Right.
I'm doing that because I want people to see that you can really speak up and not just get canceled, but get rewarded. My career is going fine.
Yeah.
It's great because I want people to have the courage. Why are we, there should be no limits?
I agree with
I'm
that.
kind of like so confused as an American citizen why every American presidential candidate have to go and kiss the hand and bend the knees to AIPAC. This is a lobby that works for a foreign country interest. Why don't we have like a lobby for Saudi Arabia? At least they're giving us more money.
You know the great thing? You can say that here.
Yes,
You couldn't say it in Egypt. That's why you're living here.
yes. But again, a lot of people feel the burn, the heat
But
whenever they come
but if I
down.
was an American, I'd be going, all right, Bassem, all right, we'll take the criticism because you can do that in this country.
And I'm happy.
When you criticize the government in your own country,
Yeah.
they drove you out.
Yes, and that's why I came to America, to play the white man's game, to actually to pass this acquired white privilege to my children. But the
it's
problem
not
is,
just a country of white people.
But here's the problem.
And the white man's game, the game in America is not a white man's game. It's a game that actually has a democracy and believes in freedom
but there
of
are
speech.
dog whistles everywhere.
You're not going to be put in jail for this interview.
Or I can lose my career and I can lose jobs, and you know that.
You
know
could
that.
in Egypt, you could.
No, here you can.
In Egypt, they arrested
here,
you.
Here you can.
Here
they
in America, you
threatened
could
you.
too, bro.
You would have probably ended up in prison
Here
or
you,
dead.
Here, a lot of people lost their jobs because they.
You
spoke.
can also
Depends
lose
what
your
they
job
say.
in
Of
America,
course,
Piers.
But again,
If you're Kanye
That-
West and
that-
you spew anti-Semitic
no,
garbage,
I'm
You're gonna
I will
lose-
never.
you're
I
gonna
will
No,
lose
there
never-
are
I will
students.
never
There
adopt that
are
kind of
students in colleges and universities right now losing their their fucking positions in the college or the fucking university. And there are also jobs that will fire you if you criticize Israel. There are contract work that you can't get from the government if you criticize Israel. You can't get the contracts. So Pierce is lying.
of you. But the thing is, there is dog whistles everywhere. As I told you at the beginning, you cannot just say it's like anti-Semite. Like, I mean, now, how come that the Palestinian flag is outlawed? By the way, it's outlawed in Israel. If you raise the Palestinian, you go to jail. And now they're saying like the Palestinian flag is a pro-Hamas. No, it's not a pro-Hamas. You know, I was doing a comedy show in Arizona, and a guy was like wearing like a kufiyah, like a scarf, and I took it, and I'm not like in hyperbole and like wearing symbols, but I just took it because like, why are we gonna outlaw colors and flags? That is absurd. That is not right.
I agree. I don't think you should. But you should certainly outlaw Hamas.
They're already outlawed. I mean,
Right.
I'm not
Because
supporting
they're a
them.
terror group,
I'm
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But the people with the power, the people who supposedly have the,
And you should, by the way, I will say this, you should be able to criticize the Israeli government without being accused of
Yes,
being anti-Semitic.
but-
I have in this interview repeatedly, and I'm not anti-Semitic. I just have a problem with all of what the Israeli government's been doing.
and I have a problem with how any criticism to Israel by some circles here are considered anti-Semite. This is not fair.
But a lot of the people doing it are actually anti-Semitic.
Yes, but also a lot of Zionists are against Israel, that they hate the Jews. You
Yeah.
know,
We've discussed that. I want to
yeah.
end on a happy.
But before that, I want to just like say 2 words about the media, which is, please.
Sure.
Mr. Zomlot, the Palestinian ambassador that you have, this guy lost 6 members of his family in an Israeli strike. And when he went on like some British news thing, he sat down and the lady told him, it's like, we are very sorry for your personal fun. I'm sure you don't condemn the killing of Israeli civilians. What? In the same moment. There's another girl like called Yara Eid. She was like on Sky News. And the girl was like crying, like, I lost 30 members of my family, 17 of them are children, I lost my best friend. And then, what did you think would happen forget about empathy.
I think a lot of people...
What about manners?
Well, I think you have to start... I've said this repeatedly. You have to start from a place of humanity. You have
Yes.
to look at what happened on October the 7th and feel utterly outraged and disgusted for the loss of human life.
Yeah.
And you also have to feel that for what's happening in Gaza to innocent people.
But
and if you can't feel for both sets of people, both sets of innocent people being killed, if you can't feel a sense of despair and horror over their deaths, you don't have any humanity.
Believe me, Piers, it's not really about that. There's a deep sentiment in the Middle East, in Arabs, that the West do not look at us as equals.
Well, you know what?
So what I did, I went to the machines.
Yeah.
And I asked ChatGPT simple questions. Do Israelis deserve to be free? And you know what they tell me? Yes, Israelis deserve the right like any other people. And then I asked the same question, do Palestinians deserve to be free? And you know what they tell me? It is complex. It is a sensitive issue.
Well, it's not complex. It's not sensitive. The Palestinian people should be free.
Yeah, but
And they
even the
should-
machines
let me
have-
finish. And they should have exactly the same rights
Yeah.
to freedom and freedom of expression and the way to lead their lives and to water and to power and to
Yeah.
internet that Israelis have and we have here in America and we have back in my home country of the UK. And I want that for the Palestinian people. We've got to end it there.
Okay.
Mainly because I've worked up a hell of a
All
hunger
right.
in 2 hours of interview.
Aw,
and you have
that's
brought my
good.
wife's
Okay.
cooking.
So, okay,
Hala, so tell me again how I do this.
Okay, so basically,
Take a piece of this,
You-
put
you-
it in
you-
the olive oil,
yes,
which is from the West Bank,
yeah, from the West Bank,
and then a little bit of this,
yes,
like that.
yes. This is like amazing oil coming from the olive tree. This has come from the West Bank. Since 1967, Israel have actually uprooted 800,000 olive trees, just to.
That is absolutely
That's
delicious.
fucked up.
Please thank your wife for me.
Thank you.
Wish her all the best and her family, particularly those who are obviously in Gaza. It's been great to see you
Thank you so much.
in America. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again.
Let's keep talking.
Yes.
I honestly think the way through this is people keep talking.
Yes.
Good
Thank
to
you.
see you.
Thank you.
Aww. That was good.
I was in the Mossad for 13 years.
But even if that Hamas commander was there amidst all those Palestinian refugees who are in that Jabalia refugee camp, Israel still went ahead and dropped a bomb there, attempting to kill this Hamas commander, knowing that a lot of innocent civilians, men, women, and children, presumably would be killed. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's not what you're hearing, Wolf.